Presented by the Making Star Wars Podcasting Network. This is the Cantina Cast, your watering hole for thought-provoking Star Wars discussion, character dissections, quote and scene analysis, honest opinions on the Star Wars news that interests you, and whatever else these guys come up with. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joao.
Hello and welcome to episode 200 of the Cantina Cast. It's amazing, Joe. We've made it to 200, although it's not too big of a deal in podcastingville, I guess you could say. 250 is more of a big milestone. I guess that's when you're really a seasoned veteran. Although I would have to say, doing 200 episodes with you and everything, I think we're pretty seasoned at this point. But in any case, it's
well, you'd have to. I mean, you got to figure, Mike, when you're talking, it's not just 200 episodes, but that's 200 hours of, that's 200 hours of content.
A little more than that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is more than that because, some of the episodes are running at 2 hours, some at, you add all those minutes up, it's probably closer to maybe 300 hours or something like that. I'll have to do the math on that one day when I'm bored. But, I guess my point is that that's a heck of a lot of time. I mean, that's, divide that. I mean, that's days and days and days worth of podcasting. Just if just breaking it down per 24 hours, that's a heck of a lot of time to do it and, put into the, I guess you'd say the craft of it. But
well, it doesn't even take an account of you doing your notes and us coming up with topics and sharing ideas throughout the week, and then me editing and all these other factors. It's a lot more than 200, 300 hours, Joe. It's a lot at the end of the day.
Just actually recording time, though.
Correct.
I mean, it's
content-wise.
It's just it is a lot. So I don't know who makes up these numbers. What's a big deal? All I know is it's a nice round numbers, 100, 200. That's usually what people respond to. So we'll do a little reminiscing here later. But I guess, Mike, I just wanted to throw out there, since this is the last episode that really people will hear before the beta for Battlefront 2 comes out.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to throw out, if you're playing on PlayStation 4, guys, and you pre-ordered and you're going to be doing beta, I think starting October the 4th, make sure you add Mike, who's at Phasma's Lover 66, and I am Kylo_driver on the PS4, and get with us. We're going to be playing and all that during the beta, and then obviously when the game launches in November. But yeah, definitely add us on the PS4, and I'll make sure Mike puts those in the notes.
Yes, I will. I'll do that. Just remind me when I get done editing, when I do the thing, say make sure you put but I'll remind myself. But anyway. All right, Joe. So a little bit of news, not much like last episode where we had breaking news with the breaking news, and we had to do that little segment there where we had to interrupt our own show and stuff like that. But, I just thought this would be an interesting topic to talk about. Is Ron Howard tweeted out a picture the other day, and in the background, people seem to think it's Boba Fett in the Han Solo film, although I jokingly said it's probably a lampshade. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination that Boba Fett would show up in the Han Solo film. I think we kind of get that impression that'll happen. At least I do. I don't know. Maybe other people don't or whatever. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's actually Boba Fett? Or I know you're like, he's overrated. It doesn't really matter. You're indifferent either way. I get that. But, just your objective opinion, if you will.
At first I couldn't even see. It was one of those perspective things with your eyes. And people were like, it's behind the two people. If you look, it looks like a Mandalorian helmet. And I was looking, and he must be standing a little further back from those two people, because I was looking at it like he was standing right next to them. So it made him like extra tall, but he was like, so I was looking at where his back is like his head. And then like that, where his head was, it made it look like it was this weird, my eyes played this huge trick on me. And it was like, I was looking at it, it was like one of those images that are supposed to play tricks on your eyes or whatever. but it was really doing that to my eyes. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? A Mandalorian helmet? I was like, all I see is like an L shape. It was like, if that's his head, I was like, what is that L on the top of it? And everybody was like, what are you talking about? So, and then finally I saw it, and just because Joe in the Discord circled it, but I was looking at the same thing the whole time. But when he circled it, my eye finally went to the right place. And I said, oh, that's his head. That's what you're talking about. And then I thought, well, if that's his back, I was like, it seems offset to the back. And now we're going to have a helmet breakdown, not instead of a walking stick breakdown. But it looked like it was offset to the back, like Kylo's helmet is. And I'm not saying Kylo is in the Han Solo movie. What I'm saying is it looked like that kind of a design of a helmet. When Boba Fett's, if you look at pictures of him, it looks like there's an offset in the front, like the mask extends out from the front of his face and not so much in the back, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know. Well, I don't study Boba Fett that much, but I don't know. It didn't. I guess it could be him. I don't really know. It could have been a lampshade.
I took it as Boba was facing the opposite direction of Ron and the other gentleman, and looking to the left. I think
that's the way that's the way I saw it too. But but if I take it that way, then what I'm saying about the helmet is correct, I think. So that's the way I'm looking at it. It looked like the back of the helmet was like offset and away from his head, when I think it would be the opposite if it was Boba Fett's helmet, but I could be wrong.
I thought he was looking away, like his back was turned and he wasn't even looking at them, like he was looking towards the other direction.
See, that's how crappy that image is. It's so hard to see.
Yeah,
or maybe my eyes are just that bad. Like I'm literally staring at it for 30 minutes and I'm like, what the hell are you guys looking at?
Well, the other thing is I thought, well, maybe it is a lampshade, like, because the way it looks, it is off centered and you can't really tell if that's a torso and he's turned to the side. Like you can't really tell too much, but
it could just be. It could be any kind of just prop, just exactly on a table or something.
It's trickery. That's what Ron is teasing us all. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did such sorcery just to trick us and stuff like that.
They could be doing that.
But what are your thoughts on Boba appearing in the film? Good chance, maybe, probably. Who cares? You don't really care.
I think. It probably makes sense. I mean, they put Vader in Rogue One. I think it makes just as much sense that put Boba Fett in the Han Solo movie. I mean, there is a hinted history between them, so we've always thought that there was in the lore or whatnot. I mean, so it would kind of like tie in that they've had this, or I don't know if there is, but I think people want them to have this history. Like when you watch the original trilogy and you want there to be like this kind of old feud between Boba and Han, and then that
was EU stuff. Yeah, that was established after, but yeah.
I mean, like I get, maybe, I don't know, but I get, well, people want some of that EU stuff to stay alive, I guess you could say. So I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there was supposed to be a Boba Fett film, and if that doesn't end up coming to fruition, why not stick him at least as a cameo in the Han Solo film at some point. Now, whether this is Boba that we're seeing or not, I don't have any idea. I doubt it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if I'm not going to sit here and say like the Hayden Christensen thing and be like, he's never going to be in the movie. Like, I'm not going to go to those links. So, I would, flip a coin either way on Boba being in it, 50-50, sure.
Well, if he's in, I'll throw this to you. And you kind of answered it already. Do you want him to be just a cameo? Or do you want it to maybe establish that rivalry that we've all kind of grew up with back in the day with the old EU and stuff like that? I personally would like... I
kind of hope he's not I hope he's not the main bad guy or anything like that. I would much rather them do something a little different, but...
Maybe encounter him and cause like some kind of like he loses a bounty or something, and this is why things happened or something like that. Maybe something like that. But I don't want it to be like
you could leave something up in the air, and then maybe if the Han Solo movie is amazing, then maybe they'll want to do a sequel to that, and then you could have the Boba Fett versus Han Solo movie or something like that. I don't know.
Well, then Han shows up in the Boba Fett film, and all that stuff. But in any case,
your mom's name was Mary.
We got
Martha.
one. No,
it was Martha, not Mary.
one more thing, which is, I don't know why we didn't discuss this before. Maybe I think we did long ago prior to this book coming out, which came out in April, and somehow we're all getting around to it now because it's making the rounds on Discord and our Discord channel and on Reddit, I guess. But there was this thing in this book, the visual dictionary, I guess it was, Joe, right? Or something like that. I can't remember.
It was a visual encyclopedia.
Thank you, sir.
Came out April of this year.
Which I thought was weird because you would think they would want to wait till after The Last Jedi to kind of update that. But hey, to each their own.
They will. They will. They'll update it again and resell it.
Of course. Yeah, I know that. I know marketing. I get that. But you know, in any case, so there was a one of these little things on navigation, and it says Luke gave the map to Lor San Tekka, which from what we've heard with like Ryan and the things that were in the EU and Variety, and I'm paraphrasing off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure here, and I apologize for that. But we get the feeling that Luke just went off to the Octu or Ashtu or whatever you want to call it, and he was just going there to retire and die and live out his days, and that's the end of it, and he doesn't want to be involved with anyone. And now we find I guess this is why it's relevant now, Joe, is because of what we've heard throughout the last couple of months with Luke is Luke doesn't want to be bothered anymore. He's like, forget this stuff. And here we have Lor San Tekka holding the map. And then to your point, when we were discussing this earlier today, when we we're going back and forth, you said, well, why wouldn't he just give it to Leia off the top of, you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't he give this to Leia? And why does
why wouldn't Lor San Tekka just give it to Leia? Like, right.
Correct. Because he holds her in high regard and he trusts her, right? Yeah. He says, to me, she'll always be royalty. So what is the problem here? Yeah. So,
or if there was some right moment that he was supposed to do it, then I don't think we really see that right moment happen in the film. So why has he decided to give Luke's location away? I don't know. I mean, maybe he anticipates the First Order finally running them down, and he's like, "Hey, get this out of my hands, Poe. You know, take it, keep it safe." But yeah, I mean, I don't think that we ever. Yeah, so that's what's weird. I mean, I thought that we kind of had this. That Lor was kind of this like adventurer type guy who like went and found stuff kind of on his own. And we knew he was like in the Church of the Jedi member and all this stuff. But I don't know. That was like kind of my headcanon, was that maybe Lor is the one who found out where the first Jedi temple was at. And by association, well, this is probably where Luke's at because I found the location to this. And so put two and two together. This is where Luke's at. But I don't know, according to this encyclopedia, and like I say, it's been out since April, so maybe some listeners, this isn't news to them, but somehow, like, you know, this got lost, at least for me and you, and some people on Reddit didn't seem to know that this little piece of information existed. So I just wonder were some liberties taken here and it slipped through the cracks of the story group? Is this really the canon story that Luke gave the location, the Lor, to at his discretion for Luke to be found? Or maybe at one point Luke thought he might want to be found, and then when Rey shows up, maybe he's completely changed his mind and he's like, yeah, after all, I don't want to be found. And it's pretty dangerous too, because the First Order could have gotten the map. Why would Luke have been like, you know, giving this? I could see Lor San Tekka finding, you know, procuring this information somehow without Luke's consent, but Luke just giving out the map that could even if he trusted Lor San Tekka, which I guess obviously he must have, but he, you know, what happens? He gets run down, he gets killed. And, you know, if he wouldn't have given the map to Poe, then the game's over, and you know, they're just going to probably blow Luke up with the Star Killer if Snoke has anything to do about it. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird. It seemed like a dangerous game for Luke to play. And why would he want to play that game? Because it doesn't seem like he wants to be found, as you said.
Well, the whole map thing was wonky to begin with. I mean, they had to come up with something for a plot device and, you know, the MacGuffin or whatever you want to call it. So I get that, and this is tying loose ends, and maybe, like you said, maybe there was some loose ends or some liberties with the book where they could go and do whatever, you know, they wanted to come up with at that point. I don't know.
I guess that the point was, I don't even know, like in that little paragraph under navigation, I don't even know if that was the point they were trying to make as some revelation. I wonder if they just were, whoever wrote it, like just wrote it that way because they thought that's what happened. And then somehow it just slipped through the crack, because I don't know, maybe somebody should tweet Pablo and ask him that Luke gave Lor San Tekka the map, like, and because I don't know. I mean, because to me, that doesn't feel like it was evident in the movie at all. Like that this is what happened. So like I would have guessed, if I was making guesses, I would have guessed the complete opposite. I would have guessed that Lor San Tekka went out adventuring or something
and found it,
and somehow procured this information and found the last piece of map. But, you know, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could be wrong. And I mean, obviously this book suggests that I am.
Well, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a little interesting tidbit in the book. And who knows, maybe that for now that's what they did and they'll revise it because whatever, or maybe it was a mistake. Who knows? It's hard to say.
Well, it's just interesting of Luke's state of mind when he left, and where would his state of mind been? And then years later, he's been on Ashto. Where is his state of mind now? So maybe at one point he thought, yeah, I'll need to be found one day. And then by the time he's sitting there being a hermit for a while, he's like, yeah, I don't think I want to come back. Get out of here, Rey. So I don't know.
Yeah, but why wouldn't he even give it to Leia? Like, why wouldn't he say, oh, here you go, sis, in case you ever need me? You know what I mean? Why would he give it to Lor? Like, what is the difference between... I would think he would trust Leia more than anyone.
I guess Leia would have probably ran him down right away. She wouldn't have waited. But I guess at the same time, why wouldn't Lor San Tekka have just... Why would he have held on to for the damn thing for so long? Like, it just... I don't know. Like, it's just... If that is the way they're going with the story, it seems plot holy to me.
Well, I mean, granted, Lor only had one part of the map. He didn't have the rest of it. So, but he probably imagines that Leia has the rest of it. So why not just go to her and say, hey, here you go. You know, we're all good.
I guess maybe if Luke's like, you have to get, if he knows that R2's the one who has the other piece, if you put both pieces, if you have both pieces, you can find me. But I mean, he has to imagine, I mean, I don't know. I don't guess this is worth going into much more, but I mean, he knew that the First Order had the archives of the Empire, so they already had what R2 had. They had the same piece that R2 had. So to me, that's just a dangerous game to play because, I mean, it could have fallen into Snoke's hands as easily as it could anybody else's. So that's why I think it makes a little more sense that Luke didn't hand the information over and it was somebody else who procured the information of where Luke was. Otherwise, Luke's just, you know, flipping a coin of who's eventually going to end up with this, in my opinion. But, you know, who knows? Yeah.
Well, we should have just stuck to walking sticks and helmet dissections. All right. So let's get into a little reminiscing here, Joe, with the 200th episode of the Cantina Cast. And I don't know, what would you like to discuss on our 200 episodes? I mean, it's been a long journey. It's hard to even think that we're at 200 with a lot of things that have happened in the past with our struggles and everything else that we've been through. It hasn't been an easy road. It's been a lot of hard work, and a lot of it's paying off now. And we're building our own community with the Discord and stuff like that. It's amazing now to see things taking shape and everything from where we were in those early days. So what are your thoughts?
Oh, you know, I mean, just going back, you know, just that when we first, you know, I guess it was that January of 2013, and I just emailed you kind of out of the blue, and I said, hey, did you ever start that, because you'd always said you wanted to do like kind of a Clone Wars podcast or something like that, and I said, hey, did you ever start a new podcast up or anything? And you were like, no, I never did. And I said, well, what if we bring back Cantina Cast and just make it a general Star Wars podcast? This kind of, we just do it all, do everything, and talk about every aspect of Star Wars. And then it was like 2 weeks later, we were behind the mic. It was like we didn't really waste too much time trying to figure things out. We were like, well, let's just record an episode. We'll figure everything else out later. And,
well, that seems to be the motto from day one on. Seemed to be trial and error. That's what we'll do.
Well, hey, I mean, at least you have something. Then at least you have something tangible. I mean, you can only plan for so long, and eventually you gotta have
trigger.
You gotta have a product at some point. That's why I just tend to just do things. It's like, why talk about doing something for 3 months when I can do it today? So, that's the way I try to be. Sometimes I'm a little bit more lazy than that. So, well, that's always the first kind of memory I have when, and I guess it is the first memory of the new Cantina cast when we came back there in, February 2013. And, we had I don't even remember what the difficulties were, but I remember we had all kinds of technical difficulties on that very first episode back, which was 22, episode 22, excuse me. And, I think we ended up having to re-record some of it or something. I don't remember what all happened, but if you go back and listen to it, it actually doesn't sound that bad compared to what, compared to, some of the other technical difficulties we ran into later down the line, which fortunately we don't run into much of that anymore because we've got pretty decent equipment. So unless the internet's screwing us up, we're in pretty good shape. But yeah, I mean,
that was a struggle for a long time, though. Our audio. I mean, I feel bad when people listen to the older episodes.
I think it was up and down. I think there was some episodes that were really, really listenable, like as far as audio quality, and then all of a sudden, like we would do something, like something would change. I don't even know what, and then like it would just go down into the crapper, and you'd have to like try to edit my track really heavily or something. But it would be like one episode out of 10. And then it would get back to normal, and then I'd have another fiasco with my equipment or something.
Yeah, well, the internet also plagues us at times too. That's a bigger issue too. I mean, remember, I think it was almost a year, and you were doing the Wi-Fi thing, I think, and finally you're like, well, wait a minute, you plugged the Ethernet into the thing, and you had the solid connection. I think that happened. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't remember that.
I've actually got a Ethernet cord now. It runs from one room into the other, and it literally runs. I've got it on a wall, like hiding behind stuff, and then I have to jump it into the air, though, because my computer's kind of like in this open space on the desk.
Yeah, like mine.
And I can't leave it on the floor because we'll trip over it, and the cats will get into it and rip it apart. And so I literally have little hooks on my ceiling where an Ethernet cable is gliding across my ceiling and going right in the back of my my Mac. And so it just, I mean, the things I've had to do because of these animals and cats, guys. I mean, I've got my Mac, it got knocked over by the cat. And so it's actually got a crack in the top of the screen.
Oh, wow.
It's not that bad. She could have completely destroyed the computer. And it was like a $1,200 computer when I bought it. And I didn't have the money to get a new one at the time. But what I did is I took self-tapping screws and I screwed the actual metal plate that's attached to the Mac itself. And I screwed it into my desk so the cat can't tip the computer over anymore. Because, Macs are just monitors basically. And the computer's inside of the monitor thing. So, but it's so light. She could just lean on it and it would tip over and it crashed on the floor, and it's got this little hairline crack in it at the top. And I deal with it. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't really bother me anymore, but I was, so I took 3 screws. And so this is the stuff I do for the podcast. It's like, this has got to work. Because my main thing was, like, because I told Ashley, I said, if this computer breaks, how am I going to podcast? Like, that's my main concern here.
Well, that happened to me. There's a funny story. Last year, around this time, I had my old computer, which has a lot of our old archives on it, and I got to get it at some point off the hard drive and take all those old files out. But what happened was we had a thunderstorm. Oh, no, it wasn't a thunderstorm. They were doing construction around here, and they were turning the power off in intervals or whatever it was, and it just fried out my computer. And we had to record, I want to say 2 nights from that day, and I was panicked. I was flipping.
I remember this.
I'm like, I don't know so I just went out and bought a new computer. Like, I shouldn't have bought it because I didn't have the money, but I'm like, all right, well, the Cantina Cast kind of, supersedes just about everything else in my life, and I've sacrificed
my life.
Exactly. It is my life. So I went and I bought it, and actually it worked out in a way because now this computer is quieter than the old one. The old one was like an old gaming PC, so the fans would kick on and they were loud. So when I'm editing, oh my God, it was a pain in the butt. I was like, and I believe Marshall had the same problem from the usual podcast. We were talking one night, and he said the same thing, that they had he has those issues as well when he's recording. He's got most of the room's quiet, but then that stupid fan would kick on and drive him nuts. But there's a lot of little things that you guys don't know that we have to do to put on a show, and a lot of like headaches that happen behind the scenes and stuff, it's the show is always evolving, and I'm very proud of where we are now, especially with our Discord stuff and our Patreons. It's a nice little community that we got there separately from everything else, and it's our little, I guess you could say, our little bubble, and that's amazing that people who listen to us want to hang out and talk to us, not just listen to us on the podcast. They want to, just get to know us and be friends with us, and that's pretty cool. So I enjoy that immensely, which is odd because normally I don't like, group people, like hang around with people and everything. But these people are pretty awesome that we've been talking to the last couple of months with Discord and Patreon. I'm very amazed by that. I don't know. I mean, it's just it's
when
crazy.
You have something in common, kind of really talk about, and it's just much more, kind of open type thing. It's not just sending an email and it's like, oh well, and it's live, it's interactive, because it's basically chat rooms have come back. They're popular again, I guess, in a way. So,
well, it's funny because.
This is the more recent thing, but I mean, it is one of the better things that has happened, I think, to the Cantina Cast, as a whole, whether you talk about, all the different iterations we've done when we had the website going with all the blogs, and now we kind of got out of that game and we got this Discord. And I mean, so this is a new thing that we've got, but I mean, I think it's definitely one of the best things we've done.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, it's crazy to think, how short of a time it like took off. I think that's my bigger surprise. It's like with the podcast itself. I mean, the podcast, to get to the success that it's been, was a slow climb to where we are now. And then to see the Discord and Patreon start to take off at the, as fast as it has, it boggles my mind and stuff. So, but yeah. What else do you got to go down memory lane a few more minutes here?
Oh, I mean, going to Celebration and us meeting in person for the first time. I'm sure we've talked about that on a previous podcast before, but it's always,
I think 100. I think we did, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It was always, that was always, a fond memory. I couldn't wait. I mean, because me and Ashley got to the hotel, couple hours before you did, and we got checked in. I mean, it might've been a few hours before you did. And I was sitting up on the balcony, and I'm like, so I was kind of excited for you to get there because we had never met in person. We'd done all these podcasts, and we had just got done with all the Luke Skywalker dissection, and that was a pretty good success for us at the time, as far as people listening to it. And it was like, okay, the Celebration here, 2015, it's make or break time for Cantina Cast. And we were recording, in the lobby, we were going around, had a bunch of people join us at different times, with Coffee with Kenobi and just all kinds of other people. I mean, I don't even know how many people we had on those podcasts, probably 6 or 7 people, when people were just standing around listening, trying to hear what we were saying, and this loud ass lobby.
The one guy that was next to me while I was hosting the show.
Phasma lover, yeah,
exactly.
He was wanting to know about Phasma. He wanted us to talk about Phasma. I'll never forget that. And he was just standing there with his beer in his hand, and he was just nodding as we were talking. He was just like really grooving to what we were saying. I'll never forget it. So it was funny, and so I mean, that's just one thing. I'll there was the podcaster meetup during Celebration and all that. Not really Cantina Cast related, but I mean, I got to meet with a bunch of the other podcasters, and that was a good time as well. So, I mean, it was just, I was just going around, Mike, it was party time for me. I was drunk the entire 4 days. It was pretty much drinking, the entire time. It was great. I was, in party mode. I was in vacay mode, and, we were on vacation. So, I was going up to everybody in the lobbies, and cause everybody there was there for Star Wars. And so I'm handing out like our little business card magnets and just talking. I'm like, yeah, I got this podcast, man. Check it out. And everybody was so nice. People that I don't know their names. I don't know them. They're not, they don't do podcasts. They don't do blogs as far as I know. But they were just fans, and everybody was so nice, and they just wanted me to, and everybody was like, yeah, okay, what's it about? Yeah. What do you talk about exactly? And everybody just sat there and would listen. I mean, I'd get into a 30-minute conversation with every person. And it was just really cool that, you know, I was soliciting my ass off, but I mean, it was cool. Like everybody was like, oh, this is cool. Like, yeah, tell me about it. Like what's going on? Like just meeting people and, you know, just for me to do that, you know, going up to strangers and meet. And obviously I had some liquid courage, but, for me, that was something different and just something I'll never forget. And obviously wanting to promote the podcast and wanting to get more listeners and, you know, getting the show out there, you know, was obviously some fuel for me as well. So that's something just the whole experience was pretty great. And it wasn't really anything at Celebration itself. It was you meeting you and other people that we were working with at the time. And also, you know, and Jason and Randy from Making Star Wars and all them. But it was also just random people that I'll never know their names, but just meeting all them and talking to them as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing with me is I got to meet you, I got to meet Becca, I got to meet Ashley, Ted, and all that stuff. Like people that I could finally meet and see in person and shake their hand or give them a hug or whatever in person instead of just talking over Skype or Google Hangouts or emails, countless emails and all that stuff. It was nice to put an actual face to the name, I guess you could say, and that's where my crush on Randy began when he came over and just started podcasting with us every night in the lobby, the hotel lobby. That was probably my favorite thing to do, is just the ambiance, the people walking around and hanging around with us and us just talking Star Wars was pretty cool. I like that. I don't know if the shows are really that good, to be honest. I would have to go back and listen to them. I don't know if they're that riveting now. But it was a fun time.
Well, we had some stuff to talk about. We had seen the trailer.
Yeah, true.
And I think there was just a lot of excitement in the air. So now, if you go back and listen to podcasts in that range, which was like in the 80s or like the early 80s, late 70s and stuff, the episode numbers, like I don't think we were at. I don't think the show had evolved to where it is now. I think we were still learning what we wanted to do with the show. And you go back to that Luke dissection, I think we were starting to get it then. We were like, we did that right before we went to Celebration, and we did 3 episodes, dissection, and we were like, okay, this is more along the lines. And as we've gone, I mean, I think even this year we've gone even more than last year. We did a bunch of breakdowns on The Force Awakens and stuff, but then we kind of got in it was a little rut content wise. And it was, you know, here and there, you know, we were like, let's do Clone Wars, let's do some route. And now I feel like it's just much more precise. I think when people tune into the show, they kind of know, okay, you're either getting a speculation episode or they're going to do something like Joseph Campbell, something philosophical, trying to go in depth with symbolism or something. Like that's where, you know, we're just going to pick like a big topic like we're going to do in the main topic here in just a minute. But I think that's where kind of the show has evolved. Like even a year ago, I don't think that we were at the point we are now. It's been an evolution over these 4.5 going on 5 years, 5 years in February since we came back and restarted the show. So yeah, I mean, it's, I think every year we kind of just add to the repertoire, if you will, a little bit. Like we just figure ourselves out and what we want to do a little bit more. And we just kind of evolve the show a little bit more.
Well, I think Rogue One really helped with that, which was this was probably the bigger surprise for both of us, is how well the Rogue One content did. We figured it would do okay, but we kind of kept going in depth with the characters, and we didn't think we would do that much. Like we did our little mini dissections, if you want to call them that, or the dissection of Jen or Galen and Director Krennic and stuff, and then, you know, Baze and Charette. Those were pretty good episodes, and we just kind of kept going on it. It was just a fun time, and it was great. And in the podcast, it seemed like we were finally, I guess you could say, coming out of our shell at that point. Like we finally figured out who we were and what we wanted to be at that point and stuff like that. And I don't mean for us to ramble on longer than we should with this going down memory lane. But anyway, I guess we'll leave it at that, Joe. We'll have to continue this at episode 250. We'll have to reminisce one last time. Actually,
50,
we'll save
50 more 50 more episodes of or maybe 100 more before
we should do 100. We should wait till 300.
I'm sure something will happen at some point, and we'll need to go back down like we did 40 years of Star Wars. Like we're going down memory lane in a different way, kind of thing. So there's always something with Star Wars that brings you back to the past and your own past in a way too. So I'm sure at some point we'll bring it back up.
Well, I mean, even in the future, we might actually have to do redo some of the dissections we did in those earlier days. But I don't know. We'll see how well that goes at some point someday. But anyway, let's get into this Obi-Wan thing. And I imagine this starts because of the book that's created a bit of stir with fans, Star Wars fans and stuff. Which is the point of
I didn't actually get the idea from that, but
no,
I didn't. I thought of this before that little thing came out, but we can tie that into this. And actually I did. I was like, oh yeah, I guess we should talk about that too. But yeah, I didn't really, I didn't get this idea from that, but I think it might help it a little. I did listen to that too. It was pretty good. I don't know. Should we, anyway, I'll review it on another day, but there was a couple little things I didn't like so much, but overall it was pretty good.
Yeah. So that Del Rey, they posted a little picture with a quote and stuff, and it was Obi-Wan basically saying, I'm Obi-Wan's ghost, I'm dead, I think, or whatever. I can't remember what he said off the top of the thing, but fans started getting a buzz with Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan...
Well, did you listen to the Yoda thing, though? With him and
I didn't get
Okay, well, that's what I was talking about. When that came out, I thought that's what you meant. I didn't get it from me. I didn't get it from either one of those things, but the Yoda Obi-Wan conversation is what I was more specifically talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so because it's Obi-Wan, there's a bit of a mystique and nostalgia, and I don't know, because we've always argued, we've said before, all right, we want an Obi-Wan movie, but we've also argued it would be kind of boring. He's just in the desert wandering around, protecting Luke. What could he get really into? You know what I mean? So there's that whole, I don't know, is it worth going into that? But this is kind of an interesting perspective with the point of view book, because it's told from secondary characters and their point of view and stuff and how things took shape. But anyway, I will throw it to you, Joe. What do we got here? We got, why did Obi-Wan allow himself to be destroyed by Darth Vader? Now, this is an interesting, it seems simple at first, because he's like, save Leia, Luke.
And somehow I don't know how we've never really talked about this before.
Yeah,
like, I don't think we've ever, I think we've talked around it. And I think we've talked about ramifications because of it happening, but I don't think we've ever talked about why it happens and why he allows it to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, when you see it on the surface, it's all okay. He's sacrificed himself so Luke and Han can get away. That's what's important. Blah 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 blah. And he's old now. He's not in the fight anymore. But obviously, it's a continuation anyway, because he ends up training Luke from the nether world or whatever, and to a degree, not much. I mean, maybe he taught him more. Maybe we'll get more where he's talking to Luke a little bit more than what we see. I don't get that in the films, but you never know. But what is your perspective on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, so I'm just thinking of it. And actually, this question, after I thought of it, I went and I kind of Google searched it to see, some other opinions out there on the internet and like what some other people's opinions were. And then I was kind of like, okay, well, so maybe it'll give me some talking points, some ideas that we can bring up. So, what about because they had Vader had put a tracking device, or he had told them to put a tracking device on the Falcon, right?
Yeah.
So they were letting Luke and everybody else escape. I mean, they wanted the Falcon to go back to the base so they could take so they could fly the Death Star to the Rebel base and make it go boom. So that was the overall plan. But even Vader senses, and he says at the Tarkin, his plan is not to escape. Like, that's not his plan. So even Vader senses that there. And so, okay, yeah, Obi-Wan studied this way with Qui-Gon and Yoda, and he's learned the ways of how to become one with the Force and keep his consciousness as Qui-Gon has. So he's studied this. He's fairly confident that he's going to be able to accomplish this if he allows himself to be destroyed. But yes, it's becoming more powerful. But why at this moment? My question is couldn't he have gotten away as well? And if they were letting the Falcon escape, why does he need to die And the only thing I can come up with right offhand is that if Obi-Wan is on the Falcon, Vader is going to say, I don't care where the Rebel base is. We have to destroy Kenobi. And they just blow up the Falcon with the Death Star or whatever, or send more TIEs after it. So like, that's one thing that comes to my mind, that maybe Obi-Wan couldn't be on the Falcon because Vader wouldn't have allowed it, I guess, in that way. I don't know. I don't know if I'm crazy.
Well, no, because Vader would have, or Tarkin would have said, all right, let the Falcon go. Obi-Wan's there. They're all on Yavin. We're going to blow it up anyway. You know what I mean? So Obi-Wan would have died anyway. This is more of the confronting your old student and all this other stuff. And I'm not exactly sure what the point, other than it's a personal thing. As Padme once said, it's personal. And, you know, it's something that had to be resolved. And maybe he thought he could kill Vader to get that burden off of Luke, maybe. But I don't even think that was his plan. Because
if he kept, but if he kept fighting Vader, wouldn't that have distracted him even more? Him dying just allows Vader to maybe get to that door quicker. Like, the door does close on him. So, like, isn't fighting him enough of a distraction? Or does he need to just be able to be a Force ghost so he can say, run, Luke, run? So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to like point out like a plot hole here. I'm just trying to.
Well, it could be my theory.
I'm trying to cover everything so like it kind of makes sense here, but
it could be my theory, because if he goes with Luke and he gets away, he's not there to say, trust your instincts, you know, don't use the computer, you know, fire, and Obi-Wan assists the torpedo into the hole.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I've got it here in the notes. I said, does Obi-Wan want to be more powerful because he'll be able to have some kind of a influence over the cosmic force? But at the same time, he tells Luke in Empire Strikes Back that he can't interfere if he fights Vader, which is always which I think is a completely different thing than we're talking about right now. I mean, that's a different thing than him. Why did he choose to sacrifice himself at this exact moment? Because I think if he keeps dueling Darth Vader, isn't he still distracting Vader enough for them to get out of there? Or if Obi-Wan's alive, maybe Luke wouldn't leave. Maybe Luke would try to fight the stormtroopers and get killed. I guess that could probably have happened.
Yeah, that seems to be the bigger thing, because the troopers are walking over to watch him and Vader and Obi-Wan fight, and Luke is. It's
like if I'm dead, there's no reason to stay and try to save me, kind of idea.
Yeah, that's probably the more logical thing when you think about it, because Luke was looking and he was ready to go, you know, do his thing.
But he didn't even want to leave after he wanted to stay and get some revenge, I think. So
exactly, and then he just, you know, that was it. And then, but I think it was also Obi-Wan. It was almost like suicide in a way. Like, he'd said in his mind, he's like, all right, well, we'll find out in the point of view thing what he was really thinking. I guess that we'll have to revisit this after that. But, you know, he's
it's assisted suicide by Vader.
Well, exactly. Death by Sith Lord, I guess you could say. But he probably at this point, he is thinking the more bigger picture being cosmic force, and he's letting go of this crude matter, what makes him in the physical realm here. And he's going to a higher, I guess, philosophical, spiritual being at this point, and that means more than he was ready to go at that time. I guess, as he even says to Luke, "Oh, not yet. I'm not dead yet." You know what I mean? He's looking up at the sky, and he has that. And Alec Guinness nailed those scenes when you go back and look at it, knowing what we know, and with his eyes and the way he does his acting, it makes it even better now. And I've said that before when we were talking about Obi-Wan and stuff like that. So. Yeah, I would think that's where I'm thinking with this. I don't know. What else you got here?
I guess another reason why he wouldn't be too pressed on, hey, I need to stay. I need to be here to train Luke. Well, I can still talk to him a little bit because I'll be a Force ghost, and I know this is going to happen. But also, he's not the one who's going to end up doing the bulk of the training because he knows eventually Yoda is going to have to train Luke at some point. Like, he's going to have to kind of finish off Luke's training, because I think Obi-Wan, you know, especially if we just take the original trilogy and the things he says about, not being able to train Anakin as well as Yoda trained him, which, there's no mention of Qui-Gon then. So it's kind of one of those things you have to kind of plug in and all that. But going back in retro hindsight, weird stuff. So Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that Yoda's or Obi-Wan is thinking, well, Yoda's going to end up having to finish his training because I'm not as good of a teacher as Yoda, and Yoda needs to be the one who
is it
really has to finish him off here as far as a training thing. But if you go into, well, I don't want to talk about actually, because the book won't be out when this episode releases. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't listened to that little story yet. Yeah, and that story. But there is something in there about the Luke and Yoda and Obi-Wan and that training and everything. So kind of just plug in your own ideas after you listen to this episode and then you listen to that story. So I don't want to spoil that, so I don't want to get into that yet. But basically, I did think of that when I was doing this particular little bullet point here. That did go into my mind, but I can't really talk about it. So,
well, is Obi-Wan being selfish here in one way of saying, "All right, I'm not training another Skywalker. I've been down this road and it ends pretty bad, so I'm gonna check out."
I don't think that it's. If you listen to that little story, I think it's a little flip flopped. Actually, okay. It's not Obi-Wan who thinks that way.
Okay, well,
not really, and not because it's a Skywalker though. So I'm already saying too much. I really don't want to spoil it. You have to listen to it. It's not that Yoda doesn't want to train anybody. It's he doesn't want to train Luke, and that's all I'll say. That's the end of it. I'm done with that. God, I just want to talk about it. It's pretty good.
Okay,
we'll review the book maybe in October sometime. We'll go over some of the stories and talk about them. I'm sure. So,
well, is the other thing that Obi-Wan's mission was over? He watched over Luke. He got Luke to the point that he needed to go, and he could let go and become one with the Force and guide him to the next teacher that he needed to see. And that's why he said, all right, I can check out now. Anakin, hey, maybe we did this final dance. You got your revenge. And maybe it was almost like Kylo, when Kylo takes out his father, in a sense, it wasn't as satisfying as you think. And that actually maybe plays a lot into even Vader starting to become Anakin again, because he steps on the robes and he's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is like going back to Mortis and all these other things, all these other memories. And, he's already at odds with the Emperor anyway. So he's thinking, all right, there's something bigger at play here. So what am I going to, as
the only thing is it's very dangerous for Obi-Wan to do this right in front of Luke because he just told him that Darth Vader killed his father.
Yeah.
He just killed me. So he just killed Obi-Wan. So it's a little dangerous.
More to us that our argument when we did the Obi-Wan thing, and we had our friend Steve, the man who we don't say his last name, pointed out, I didn't take it that way. I thought Obi-Wan wanted him to confront him. Well, we always took it as Obi-Wan wanted to kill him. Isn't this more proof? If Obi-Wan sacrifices himself and dies in front of Luke, it fuels more hate and anger for Luke to take out Vader, his own father, which is very Sith-like. And as we've said with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan learned a lot more from Palpatine than anybody else. But, that's a whole other... I don't know. What do you think of that? I mean, it's obviously a catalyst for it, right?
Well, it could be. And I don't know that Obi-Wan meant it to be that way, though. I think, and I hadn't even thought of it that way till I just said it. It just popped in my head. But I think the flip side to maybe not that argument, but there's another way to look at it was Obi-Wan trying to get rid of Luke's attachment before he could form a strong attachment to Obi-Wan, because he was teaching him kind of the ways of the Force, as they're going to the Death Star, which they thought was Alderaan at the time and end up at the Death Star. But, he's teaching him some stuff, but he's not teaching him like the Jedi code. He's not teaching him about, Jedis aren't allowed to have attachments and all this. So if we're going back and we look back at what we know now about the Jedi, could he have been like, okay, well, you need to learn this lesson early on. And so I'm gone. You know what I mean? Like, is this almost a lesson for Luke? Don't get too attached.
Well, it is in a way. If you go the whole Joseph Campbell mythology thing, and Lucas, based on his storytelling, is, the master has to die in order for you to grow and achieve the next level. Like, you have to.
Well, and really, I mean, it's a lesson though. Even, I mean, from an outside perspective, from a technicality perspective, yes, this is the storytelling mechanism that Lucas was using here. I wasn't trying to go there with it necessarily,
no, I get that, but for growth,
this is this is a Jedi. This is kind of more like he's not telling him that Jedi can't have attachments, but he's teaching him that lesson: don't get attached. And so there's no greater lesson and there's no greater teacher of lessons than experience, right?
Well,
so
does this work out in favor in two ways? All right, we know Luke is attached to Leia, Han, Chewie, R2, and C-3PO. He has that connection with them. His friends are his thing, and that's almost his undoing in Return of the Jedi. But Obi-Wan dying also taught Luke to be able to let go as well. So it's almost like two things happen here, where he learned to let go and accept that what is, and he has this attachment to his sister and everything, which also grounds him. Which is, he starts to lose his mind when Vader says, "Well, perhaps she can be trained," and he starts, going crazy and everything, which is a beautiful scene. It's one of my favorite scenes with that music and everything and stuff like that. But he pulls himself back at the end of the thing and realizes, oh, I can't become my father. You know what I mean? I got to learn to let go, which is probably what we see later down the road with the Last Jedi and everything else. So to me, it's almost like a double-ended thing here if you're going to take that side of the argument, Joa.
Well, I mean, and then we can go in. I made a little subtopic because of that. I mean, this end bullet point we were just talking about, it made me think of this other little subtopic going into Luke a little bit more. But isn't, and what you said is kind of contrary to what I was thinking, though I think maybe a little bit. But isn't Luke's attachments, isn't that why he's here now? Because he can't deal with it anymore? Like he brought the Jedi back. He wanted it seems from the Entertainment Weekly article, he wanted the train bin. And then finally Leia maybe lets it. That seems to be the way it went down according to that. Maybe not, but it's the way I kind of took it. So he gets the train bin, maybe thinks he's the chosen one or something like that. And then all things go to hell again. The Jedi are destroyed. My family member, again, it's with the family. First it was my father. Now it's it's my nephew. So he just loses it and he leaves and he exiles himself. But that's because he, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to stay super strong here. And I'm going to write this and I'm going to do what I have to do to take him out of power and Snoke out of power. And I'm going to get involved and do the right thing here. No, I'm just going to leave. So, I mean, because he's broken because of the attachments he had formed with his Jedi students. He failed Leia. He's embarrassed, probably. He's ashamed, probably. I mean, so isn't Luke's, he never did learn that lesson, I guess. You know what I mean? He still had those attachments and and it's led him to this point. But I guess at the same time, you can look at it. I mean, you can look at it from the flip side too. And it's like, maybe he wouldn't have been the person he was if he didn't have Han and Leia. Maybe he would have turned to the dark side. Maybe he would have said, you know what? I'm not really fighting for anything. I don't know those people. Sure. I'll join you, Palpatine. I'll join you, Emperor. So so it's like sometimes it saves you. Sometimes sometimes it can be a hindrance, at the same time. And it's like I always say, Vader makes the same decision twice, and one time it's wrong and one time it's right. When he attacks Mace, it's the wrong decision, but he makes the same choice and interferes in a fight and stops somebody from being, electrocuted. But it's the right decision. So that's life, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think it's with Anakin. He took it to the extreme of being attached. As I always said, he was obsessed with Padme. I don't know if he was really in love. I think he was just an obsessed teenager, I guess you could say. Most disagree with me with that, and I get that. That's fine. You can. I don't. It's not going to bother me. But and Luke, on the other hand, takes it in the sense of family, which is strange because you'd think Anakin would be the same way and stuff. Of course, Luke has a sister. He knows, Leia's his sister and everything. So there's that there, and he's more grounded with her. And he knows he's got his father, too. And he's always wanted a family. And even Anakin, they all wanted a family at the end of the day. So in any case, now when you go years later, I assume he wanted to bring the Jedi back, and I assume he was probably nagging Leia all this time to train Ben, and then something happens, and we have our own theories of what happened, and then Ben goes off with Luke and stuff, and I think Snoke was also trying to get Ben as well at the same time. So Luke just happened to win out at that point, go to Uncle Luke and learn the ways of the Jedi and everything, because Luke thinks he's the chosen one and everything. So again, he fails Ben, the Jedi Order falls apart and everything else, and then he's probably blaming himself for Leia's son turning bad, like all those things you said. And Luke is at the point like, all right, I can't get involved because every time I get involved, it just goes bad. At some point, it just goes bad. And even with Leia, but then again, the contradiction goes back to that map thing. All right, hey, Lor San Tekka, here's the map to find me in case things go really, 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 really bad. Come and get me, but don't give it to my sister. Unless it's really, really bad. You know what I mean? So there's that whole, and you can't put that much, I won't scrap that from the table. We won't even talk about that there. But in this point, Luke's at the point in his life where, and I agree with him, it goes back to what Yoda said, attachment leads to jealousy, which leads to this and that. And that's part of the dark side, where Luke maybe learned that lesson, maybe even talk to Yoda and put a Force Ghost call in, and Yoda's like, yeah, don't get attached to anything.
Isn't that the balance you have to find yourself?
Correct,
because like I just said, I think his family saved him, and it was Vader, and it took family for Vader to turn back. But it was family that made Vader turn in the first place, and so now we could be seeing kind of the same thing for Luke in like kind of an opposite way. Like it was, family. Yeah, he had that dark moment when he mentions Leia, but at the end, I'm not going to do it because my father was a Jedi. And what would Leia do? I want to save Han. I'm not going to turn against them and what they believe in. And I'm gonna, but then in the end, now it's like very dark times for Luke as we see now going into The Last Jedi. So it's almost like a flip of Vader's life in a way, like because Luke made the right decision, but it was based on attachment and family, and then things went wrong based on attachment and family later. And that's the thing. Sometimes families are great and sometimes they're your undoing. And again, like I say, that's kind of real life because your family, you will do stupid things for the people that you love.
True. Yeah.
And you will do things that don't make any sense for people that you love. No, it's not even rational. And sometimes things turn out good and sometimes they turn out bad. It's kind of just a flip of the coin, I guess you could say. So, I mean, and then it's like, and then you react however you're going to react to the way the chips end up falling.
In a way, you could say Vader saves Luke from going that route when he looks at Vader's hand and Vader's giving the hand up like, all right, you beat me. And
I mean, it's deeply symbolic. Yes. I mean, it's obvious. Yes.
It's like they saved each other. Like in a way, like Luke, that moment made Luke realize I'm turning into my father and stopped. He centered himself. And then, of course, we see what happens. He says, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, one of the greatest lines of all time. And he throws the saber and all that stuff and realizing I don't need this. I have what I need to be is, I have my morals and stuff like that and values. And then Vader saves the day by, saving Luke there. So they saved each other at the end of the day. Luke's love for his father and, vice versa. So it'll be interesting. I think Luke is taking the neutral balance. I need to get the hell out of here. But again, it goes back to that map in a sense. Like he knew that at some point he might have to get involved again because it's too great of a
It's almost
problem.
like a self-sabotage type of a thing.
Yeah, I guess.
But more in a positive way, I guess, because it's like, he's like, I really don't want to be found, but one day I know I'm going to need to come back and I'm probably not going to want to, and I'll probably kick and scream to come back, but eventually I'll be convinced and I'll come back. So it's almost like, when you're like a self-sabotager in life, like where it's like everything's going good in your life. And then you're like, I'm going to do something that completely sabotages everything, like subconsciously that like happens in my life. And just because everything's going way too good. And so I almost think it's kind of the opposite of that, where Luke is like, I just want to be depressed. Leave me alone. But, and I don't want to come back, but it's like somewhere deep down, he knows that he'll need to come back and and he will come back for the right reason, but he'll kick and scream the whole way, and he doesn't want to go to Tashi Station anymore. But eventually he's going to come along for the ride because he'll figure out it's the right thing to do. And somewhere, maybe deep down in his conscience, maybe that's why he did it. I don't know.
Well, it goes back to, I think maybe if he did this, if he gave it to Lor, it was almost like, all right, this is break in case of an emergency. And when in Luke's mind, I'm coming back as almost like Obi-Wan at this point. Now is the time, and now I got to make a sacrifice where I'm not going to be around after this, and it won't matter to me anymore. I'll be Force Ghost Luke, and that'll be that, and I'll have done what I needed to do to right this ship, and it'll be on to another person. Now, I think what changes all that is Rey showing up, and it flips his thinking upside down in a way, because he's like, oh, well, this is a wild card I wasn't expecting. Like, I think Luke thought he had most of the answers, and then when that happened with Ben and everything, he still thought, all right, well, this is just the way it is, and there's nothing I can do to change things, really, or whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, he can't, no matter what I think he's at the point, maybe it's not right, but in his mind, he's at the point where there's nothing I can do. No matter what I do, it's always going to be a disaster. And even with Leia around, like, maybe that's why he doesn't even talk to her. He's like, well, it's not good for the galaxy that we're both here, which goes into my other theory with Rey wiping them all out. But, that's for another day, I guess you could say. But any more to say, sir?
No, I think I'm good. I think we made something out of
nothing,
a molehill as usual. So, I think it was okay conversation. I think hopefully people got some, some thoughts out of it. Maybe they're, thinking, get you thinking. Again, it's as Mike says, thought-provoking Star Wars talk. As I say, thought-provoking Star Wars discussion. So,
and that's the greatest debate in Cantina Cast history that we've ever had.
It's better than is it better than Walking Sticks?
No. Walking Sticks is classic. Especially, I could use one because I threw my back out. I could actually use a walking stick this week. But in any case, I guess that'll do it, Joa. Tell them where to like us, find us, and all that good stuff.
Oh, sure. You can get with us on our Discord. We share it all over our social media. If you have a hard time finding it, it's like an app or it's web-based, guys. It's just like a chat thing. If you can't find it, just email us or with any other things you want to email us with, cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com. Check out our Patreon page and the couple of the perks we've got on there. And that'll be in the notes as well. And then Facebook.com/TheCantinaCast and Instagram and Twitter. You can find us at The Cantina Cast.
And that'll do it for this week. And the march to 300 begins next week, Joe. So I hope you're ready.
All right. Let's just get to The Last Jedi first.
All right. We're out of here, everybody. You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.